Hey, how y'all doing? I just want to start this off by saying, one, I don't fuck with the USA like that, even though I live here. I know, leave, I know. But I just want to play something a little different for y'all. I'm not okay. And I haven't been okay for a while now. I have been trying to push through and trying to hustle through and trying to do all the things to try to get by, but I have been struggling. And I think even my stroke that I had, my mini stroke that I had back in November, I don't think it had nothing to do with my physical health per se. I think it had to do with trauma, and I think it had to do with my situation that I'm living in and stuff. So let's get into it. So I just really want to start this off by saying I am suffering from a narcissistic family structure. And some people may not know what that entails, but I'm going to get more into detail with it and just how I'm at a breaking point, and I feel like I'm going crazy because I keep gaslighting myself out of my experiences. Because how can my parents not, empathize with me? How could they not truly, how could they lie to me? How could they do all these things to make me feel like I'm crazy? And I really have tried for the longest to blame everything but them. I've tried to blame myself. I've tried to take accountability for my actions and the things that I have done. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. And none of that is the pressing issue. I'm not the problem. And I've been trying to make myself the problem for years now, and for a long time now, and basically for my whole life, because I've been made to feel that way. I'll start with my mom, which has taken me the longest to realize that she's a narcissist, because she is so masterful at it, y'all. She is a master at this shit. But basically, my mom was one of my first, I wouldn't say bullies, but one of my first people to invalidate me and my experience and who I was, just in my queerness. And that ultimately set up my self-esteem and confidence going forward. Some of my first memories of my mom include her berating me, include her saying this about me, or looking at me very weird. Just to start off, I don't think most people don't understand that feeling, and I'm sure my gay people and queer people know that feeling, to have your mother look at you in utter disgust at you just being yourself. But like I was saying, one of the first telltale signs to me that I was even realizing as a child that there was something wrong there was something not right. I remember my mom asking me if I loved her, and in my head it just if it happened one time, I wouldn't have took notice to it, but it has happened multiple times from childhood up, to ask me if I loved her. And honestly, whenever she would ask me that as a child, I eventually had to start masking and just saying yes. But when she would ask me that initially, I would literally sit there and ponder. I was like, I don't know what love is in my head. But at the same time, I'm looking at her like I could see the low self-esteem in her and the insecurity in her to ask me, her child, if I loved her. And I could see that in her at that age. And I knew something was off about that. But of course I didn't have the language, I didn't have the know-how, I didn't know that it was something as serious as narcissism or whatever. or it's like a lot of insecurities and stuff. But another thing she did to me as a child was, in like as an adolescent, she practiced the silent treatment on me. She had these rage and these, a lot of times with narcissists and narcissistic parents, they have these what do you call it? They have these rageful fits, and like even like whoopings and all that stuff. I know some people, for a lot of black people, or some black people, especially in the South, that's like normal. But I feel like a lot of those things were used to instill fear in us, so that we wouldn't try to come back at her or try to whatever. And it worked because I was very fearful, and even to this day I still have trauma responses and trauma like within me from those times, and from just how the emotional and psychological manipulation. I could never, like, she would always criticize my like masculinity, and like if I wasn't acting boyish enough or acting like a man enough, it's always been a problem. And stuff like that just doesn't do well with your confidence and stuff. And of course she had her mothering moments and stuff, but truly and honestly, the rageful moments and the upset moments and the coming home upset and whooping us because, yeah, we may have did something, but it's amplified now because you had a bad day at work, or just having little to no patience with us as children. I think that really had a big effect on me, and like my people pleasing and all that. The silent treatment part, that's where I feel like I got some of my humility from, just because in order for her to start back talking to me again, I would have to give her all this energy. Like I would be trying to make her laugh and all this and that, and just really trying to like, hey, like it's okay now, like, you know, you can talk to me again. And as a kid, I shouldn't have had to go through that, and the effects are affecting, because I'm dealing with the effects still to this day. But I gaslighted myself out of that because I was just like, this is my mom, this is my dad, they care about me, right? You know? So I'm just move on to my dad. This is mostly gonna be like talking about my parents per se. Like I'm gonna get into my siblings and stuff, but I'm gonna start with my parents because they're like they are the facilitators of this whole thing. So with my dad, he has always been extremely critical of me. Anything I do, when I tell you anything, I literally mean anything. If it came to just like chopping up vegetables, I just couldn't do it right. I could never get it right. I could never do anything right, and he would always take over, and he would always, you know, just go on, just whatever, just dismiss me. And he had his rageful moments as well, but I didn't experience those until more of my adolescent years, because a lot of times when I was younger, I was at the house with just my siblings and my mom, and he would come home, like his shift would be like, he would work some long ass shifts, and like that's something that I'm very grateful for, that he did those things to support us and stuff. But it's just like, and I feel like that especially gets used to invalidate my experiences, because he worked so hard to support us, or she worked so hard to support us and stuff. But that doesn't take away from the emotional manipulation and stuff that they did to us. Well, to me, I'm going to say me because my siblings don't like me speaking for them. I'm speaking for myself. I'm an advocate for myself. Yeah, I can never do anything right. And I think especially by the time I hit high school, and there's a lot of things that could possibly go into why they act the way they act, but especially my dad. But by the time I hit high school, he started to really put this thing about money in my head, like this and this costs money, this and that costs money, this like making me worried about money when I shouldn't have been worried about money at that age. I mean, I was in high school and I was about to become an adult, but like he shouldn't have done it in that way, especially not giving me no financial literacy to begin with. Not saying that a lot of my families have it or have those tools, but like he's trying to make me very much so worried about money. It got me to a point I didn't want to ask for anything, and I was already at a point where and I've always been like this. I never really asked my parents for much. Like, I would probably have this one little thing that I want really, really bad, and I'm asking for it, and maybe get it. And some people would consider that spoiled, I guess, but I tried not to ask for too much. I tried to make myself not too much of a burden, because I was trying my best to just make the family happy, make everybody whole. But before I even finish off with my dad, just like being the scapegoat, or at least one of the scapegoats, I feel like I was the main scapegoat, and I know for a fact I'm like the main scapegoat today. Everybody pushing your buttons, trying to get reactions out of you, and then painting you out to be this so emotional of a person that just doesn't have any emotional regulation or intelligence, and is always going off on people. When in actual reality, y'all have driven me to those places. Y'all have made me act out. And I feel like it fuels y'all egos, and it helps y'all feel better about yourself. I don't fucking know. But I'm not that person that they try to make me out to be, and try to make me out to look to other people and stuff. Even when I would get whoopings as a child, like, and I know y'all have the similar experience where your moms get on the phone telling everybody about your business and what's going on in your household and stuff. Like, painting is like diminishing your character to other people, and you can't even speak up for yourself, because these are adults that you don't even have contact with. You don't have your own phone, none of that. These people's whole idea of your character, especially when you're not around them, which isn't much, because the narcissist will kind of remove you from that kind of space, because they don't want you to be able to say the different stuff they're doing and it's a whole thing. But yeah, never feeling like you can speak up for yourself, or people are telling you who you are and what you are and this, that, the other. It's just not a good feeling. But with my dad, and I think part of this is his own trauma, because his dad died when he was in high school, and I think that has been a recurring theme with a lot of his actions and stuff. That doesn't not make him a narcissist, because he definitely is. I knew about him before I knew about my mom, but it was making me worried about money. I got to a point I was scared to ask him about anything, because if I asked him for anything, it was going to become a rageful fit. It wasn't a simple no. It had to be a whole lecture on and it wouldn't, even with the lecture, it wouldn't necessarily be no. It would just be this whole thing where I'm having to prove myself, or having to get to a point of not begging, but almost begging, and trying to literally prove my case to be able to get the most simplest things. He was complaining about the cost of my cap and gown, all this and that. He complained when I went to prom. He complained about the fact that I wanted a $60 suit jacket off of Amazon. I didn't ask him for much for prom. I didn't ask for no custom, this, that, the other. I found me a cute little suit jacket, and that's what I wanted. He complained to hell about it just to eventually get it. And that was how a lot of my life looked. Like, him complaining about different stuff, having the money to do these things. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like they were like struggling financially, and that's what makes this worse. They weren't struggling financially and had the means to do a lot of these things, but they had to make sure there was this, like, they had to make sure that they did whatever and said whatever to make you feel a certain way about it, just to go on and do it anyway. But especially by the time I had reached college, even before college, I just would notice, like, when my mom, she wouldn't want me to go places by myself. Like, she didn't want me to go to school out of state. She wanted to be able to have that control on me. My parents are very, very controlling, and that's a very big theme in our relationship, is them being controlling. and me not having a say or being able to advocate for myself because they financially have supported me in the past and stuff. So how do you speak up against that when they're your whole livelihood? And that's what a lot of people are in situations like. And I can't find all the words right now, and I'm trying my best to really explain this to y'all, but I just really need to speak this out. I really need to put this in a video, and I need somebody to see it because I don't have nobody to talk to about this stuff, and to truly be able to validate my experiences and make me feel sane. So here we are. And I wish I would have wrote notes, but I couldn't. I needed to get on this camera. But by college, the financial manipulation started a lot more. Complaining about finances was even worse. And mind you, I have ADHD, and so my impulsive spending was not good. And that's because I wasn't given those tools and stuff I just wasn't, when it came to financial, I just wasn't prepared. And I know some people be like, take accountability, but that's me taking accountability. Like, I didn't know no other way. And it was hard for me to be any other way because I didn't know what was going on with me. I was undiagnosed with ADHD, and I didn't know why I would have these impulses to spend this money, or like I was set up in my mind like, oh, okay, I can get this back, I can do this, but then not get it. It just was a whole thing. But fast forward, really, even with COVID, he tried to make me not be able to come home for like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Mind you, they are my primary, like I live in their household, but I was staying in college, so I was staying in my apartment. But like y'all, they were telling me I couldn't come home because of COVID or this, that, the other. It's just, everything just constant battle. Just a constant battle. But by the time I dropped out, of course I had not had no job. The job I did have, I quit because one, the job wasn't sustainable. Two, they weren't paying me enough to sustain. Bad work environment was done with them. Like, I couldn't do it. So I had to leave. And so with that, and with me dropping out, I had to come home. So that was when hell ensued. That was when they had me in their household 24/7. They had full control over everything because I had nothing. And even in college, before I even got to this point, I hit a point where I started to become more self-aware and started to look at things over my life a lot more and see, like, from other people's experiences and looking at my own and just how stuff isn't. I was noticing those things weren't right. I was noticing it's not right to treat your child with silent treatment and do all this and that. I was noticing these things, and of course, like many people do, and many late teenagers, college kids do, when they started to differentiate themselves from their parents, I started to blame them for a lot because I was just realizing what was going on. I was just realizing I wasn't even realizing completely what was going on here, but I was realizing it was some stuff you all have done to me that has never been apologized for, and y'all have never taken accountability for. And so I'm telling y'all about it. And at the time, I was thinking the only way I was going to be able to grow emotionally and to move past it and to grow would be for them to take that accountability and for them to apologize. But they refused to apologize. One, because I would tell them these things that they've done to me, and it would be, I don't even remember that. What are you talking about? I don't even remember that. And so until I got them to a point where it was just like I had too many things against them. And so my mom, she got to a point where she was just like blanket apologizing for stuff, but still after like she didn't really remember it, and it would still be an apology like, I'm sorry that you felt that way. Not I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that you felt that way, or I'm sorry for everything that I may have ever did. And then she went even further to emotionally manipulate and be like, I guess I'm just a bad mother, this, that, the other, doing all of that shit she's done my whole life. But it was like very apparent now. Even like, okay, let's get on the emotional manipulation, some more of that with her. Whenever she would go to the store somewhere, or have to go somewhere by herself, and maybe we wouldn't want to go with her, and maybe we just wanted to stay at home, it would be a whole like pouting little thing that she had going on, like, and with the trauma in my head, it would just be like, oh, if I don't go with her, she might die. It sounds crazy. Yeah, I know it sounds foolish, as SZA would say, but I'll be like, she gonna die if I don't go with her. She's gonna be really sad if I don't go with her, and it's gonna really affect her if I don't go to the store with her. Or after we would get a whooping or something like that as a kid, after I get done crying and maybe take my after cry nap and get up, or not even. Sometimes when I wasn't taking a nap, I would go in the living room. She was back to normal. That all that rage that she had was gone. She'd be like, "Oh, you want to go out? You want to go to the store? You want something from the?" That's not normal. That is not normal to go from that to that, and that is what she has done to me my entire life, and that shit fucks with you. So by the time I got home. Yeah, and with my dad, with the telling them about themselves and the stuff they've done to me, and even trying to, and at the same time, I was actually realizing I was having ADHD. I was struggling in school, so it was a whole thing, and I was trying to get the proper help and the proper diagnosis from an actual psychiatrist and stuff, but they weren't no help. They weren't helping me look for any. I don't know what I had to look up all these terms. I didn't know what a psychiatrist was. I didn't know the difference between the psychiatrist and the therapist. I didn't know none of this shit. I'm sitting here having to look this shit up, trying to advocate for my own mental health. I had a depressive state where I had suicidal ideations and stuff, and it was a whole thing. I was trying to come into my sexuality. I had not came out to them by this point. But before I moved in with them, or right after I moved in with them, after I dropped out, this was back in 2020, the summer of 2020, summer of 2022, when Renaissance came out. My dad, like I said, he's always been critical of anything I do. I've had high moments where I'm feeling really good, and he just comes in and criticizes it, because that's what he does. That's what narcissists do. They want to break down that confidence or any self-esteem that you may have. And the trauma is really making me forget, because I don't want to resurface a lot of this stuff. But I'm trying my best to for the sake of this video. But by that, 2020 was full of arguments. Me trying to speak up for myself, and trying to still be respectful of my parents, but still trying to advocate for myself and point out when things weren't right, and pointing out stuff that they were doing that wasn't cool with me. And of course that turned into arguments, because what could I ever do wrong type stuff. I'll just fast forward to when I came out. I came out, the way it happened, my parents went over to my brother's house. He had just bought a house down in South Louisiana. We live in North Louisiana, and they went down there to go help him with whatever. And my other brother, my eldest brother, who is also gay, I have two older brothers and a little sister. Age gap from me to the middle brother above me is 8 years, and then those two, the oldest two, are like a year and a half, a year apart or so. So yeah, that's how that is. And the oldest is gay. The middle one, that's house they went to, isn't. And he, yeah, so they went down there to help him. Child, and I probably told the story before, but I worked up the courage. My oldest brother had came home from Dallas. He lives in Dallas. And I just had the courage to tell them right then and there, because it's just like I was so deathly afraid to tell them. One. Two, I wanted to make sure I was financially ready for anything that could have ensued, because that very well was a possibility with their personalities and how they act of getting kicked out. But I'm going to explain later why I didn't get kicked out and how, and the reasons why I feel like certain stuff don't happen in certain ways with them. But yeah, I ended up doing it in a text message, I think, or I called and said it. No, I did it in a text message. And they were, of course, distraught. My dad was like, how do you know? How do you know? The whole shebang. And my mom she instantly turned into the victim. Instantly turned into the fucking victim. And is sitting here crying and went into this whole emotional state where she just like acted like it's something fucking wrong with her. And I feel like even now that whole experience got put on me, like kind of like how I ruined that trip, like for coming out at that time. Like, why did I do it? And I honestly couldn't think of any better time to do it. I couldn't think of any safer time to do it. And if you're not gay and you don't understand like how that feels to possibly have your whole rug and everything, your stability just ripped out from under you just for coming out as gay, I can't truly make you understand or empathize with that. But yeah, that's how I came out. And so of course they came home, and of course there was going to be a bigger conversation about this. And my dad's first thing was like, how do you know? But then it turned into a whole, you lied to me. It turned into, I became the villain and they became the villains in my coming out. My mom just sitting there staring at me with this disgusted ass look on her face. He's asking me, how do I know I'm gay? He's getting offended and telling me like I've been lying to them this whole time. And that became the story, that I've been lying to them, and they're saying all kinds of hurtful things to me. And I'm at a very, very vulnerable position right now, coming out to them, and this is how they're acting. Like, why didn't you tell us? They doing all this stuff, this crazy, like you telling me this, saying all these crazy things to me, then telling me why I haven't done it before now, why have I been lying to y'all? But you've been acting like this, you've been homophobic my whole life. You've been criticizing me and reprimanding me for doing more feminine things, for having a limp wrist, for talking certain ways, for listening to certain music. And you're surprised that I didn't come out to you? This wasn't necessarily a very safe environment to do that kind of thing. And I also had HIV by this point, and I knew but that I couldn't do both at the same time. I had to do one before I did the other, and I knew I was eventually going to possibly have to tell them about my status, because I was going to need help with insurance, because I didn't understand these things, and I needed to know what resources I did have available to me. But I couldn't know those things if I couldn't ask them, and for the longest I couldn't even tell them about that, and I was struggling with that myself. And my brother helped me a little bit with that too, like getting in copay assistance programs, all that kind of stuff. That was a whole journey, trying to figure out my medication and trying to get all that by myself. It was really a struggle. But yeah, I had to do one before the other. I knew that. But yeah, after I came out, it was a whole thing, and they were the victim, and I just kept it pushing. And I was halfway moved in. My lease wasn't up until that late June, but I came out before I had to move back. So then I get home, and just everything, the emotional manipulation is still there. But I was getting to a point where I was starting to speak up for myself more, and that was causing more arguments, because they don't want to take accountability for nothing that they do. And yeah, I'm really trying to dig deep to give y'all more. Those who have lived in a narcissistic family, household, or structure, y'all understand where I'm coming from. But I'm really trying to dig to really give y'all some examples to help y'all really paint the picture. Y'all know how expressive I am with how I dress and stuff. That's a no-no. At home, that's a no-no. And that causes a lot of stress on me because I had just gotten to this point where I was more comfortable in my skin and my sexuality and stuff. And now I'm having to go back, like, in my expression, in my self-esteem, my confidence. All of that is taking a very big hit to live in this household with these people. My privacy is basically gone. I can't do stuff like I used to. I can't just go places like I used to. I have to tell somebody. I have to... My parents were very controlling and helicopter parents, especially my mom. I'm sitting at the table, we're watching a video, scrolling through social media. Who was that? Like that whole thing, that whole thing. But there was also this juxtaposition of me living in this household like this, because I know a lot of y'all like, well, why don't you just move out? You're like 20. I'm about to turn 23 this year. You're like, at the time I was like 21 or 20, about to turn 21. Why haven't you moved out? Why don't you have a job? This, that, the other. One, in this area, jobs are a dime a dozen. Especially jobs where you're getting paid what you're worth are a dime a dozen. Let's talk about jobs really quick. My first ever job was in 2020 at McDonald's. I was 19 years old. The reason I had gotten a job so late, I had wanted a job before then. But until I turned 18, no jobs were hiring. One, two, I was in school. My parents didn't want me to work, so that was even making it even harder. They wouldn't help me with that kind of stuff. And then when I turned 18, a lot of these jobs, they won't even hire me at 18. So eventually, by the pandemic, McDonald's was literally my last option. Because I did not want to work at McDonald's, and I knew I wasn't cut out for McDonald's, and it wasn't even a pride thing. It just was like, I do not want to work at McDonald's. I do not want to work fast food, but I especially do not want to work at McDonald's. But McDonald's was the only people that called me back and actually set up an interview with me and got me in there and got me to working. Nobody else would hire me, and that just sets the tone for just jobs in general around here. Finding jobs is not the easiest. And I was, of course, applying to everywhere. I was on Indeed, I was on LinkedIn, I was on all the shits, and I wasn't finding shit. Because unless you live in a small community like this, you understand. And even the jobs that I could, the more jobs are like 30 minutes away from here, and that's the whole thing. And 30 minutes in a more rural area is different than 30 minutes in the city. Yeah, McDonald's ended up hiring me, and I was working at McDonald's. I noticed I was a very good worker. I was just very on top of my shit, and I'm a people pleaser as well. So I get something out of being validated by others and being told I'm doing a good job and getting that encouragement and stuff, because I wasn't getting it from my parents most of the time. That empathy and like all of that encouragement. You can say they gave me encouragement, but it wasn't the kind of encouragement I needed. They never really fulfilled my needs as a child. They could only do stuff in the way that they saw fit for them, and not so much what actually would help me. But the whole reason I even started talking about McDonald's is I realized then that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to work no job for the rest of my life. I don't want to have to be subservient, not even subservient, but I don't want to be under somebody and all this and that for the rest of my... I do not want to do it. And this is 2020. That was before I even dropped out. So I kind of went back a little bit. But fast forward, I worked at Walmart for a bit. ADHD kind of sabotaged that because my time management was horrible. But then I ended up working at my last job, the last job that I worked since 2022, since May of 2022. And like at that time, that was when I was starting to get into my fashion and starting to get into more of my passions and stuff that I genuinely want to do in this lifetime. And I was realizing, like, I don't want to work at this job no more. They don't appreciate me. They're not paying me enough. They take up all my time. When I get home, I'm too tired to even paint on it, to do anything when it comes to my passions or stuff. So it was just like, I was noticing like a dead endness of it all. And I felt moved to leave, and I did. But I'm just really trying to set the tone. Like, I do not like jobs. And I'm not somebody that's cut out for hustle culture and doing all that. I'm just, you can call me spoiled, you can call me entitled, you can say what you want to say. That shit's not for me. Y'all can do that, and more power to you. I will never talk bad about somebody working. That's something I would never do. But me personally, it's not for me, especially when I'm not getting paid my worth, and especially when it's taking all my time and energy away from the things that I actually want to do in my life. So yeah, even then that summer, I had reached my breaking point then. Was like waiting for my some opportunity to come, waiting for somebody to save me from the situation. Of course, that never came. And I just was like, trying to have faith, but like also still having this negative talk about myself that I've gotten from my parents, and the criticizing and stuff. All of that has been my internal thing, and it causes me to self-sabotage, and I think I'm good enough and all this and that. In that summer of 2022, still, my brother invited me to come out to Dallas, because he was always telling me about like how, like he was trying to show me like the finer things in life, and trying to motivate me in a sense to like work my ass off to do certain things, but it wasn't pushed like that. A lot of things my family do is like they do certain situations, and it's like they want you to read their mind and want you to pick the right decision and stuff. Irregardless, I went down to Dallas, had a good time. This was the week Renaissance came out. It was just I came off on a high. And that's just something I just wanted to express, because my oldest brother was somebody that would help me from time to time when I would ask for like $20 here or whatever, and he wouldn't ask for it back. And this is back when I was in college. And he was supportive in a sense where we could talk to each other about stuff, and I was starting to open up to him more. But he has done some slimy shit too, and I don't talk to him anymore as of recently, because I realized some narcissistic shit about him. But yeah. That kind of sets the tone for him. But yeah, I'm just going through arguments and stuff, waiting for somebody to save me, not feeling comfortable to do the things, like to really, like as an artist, like being here has really stunted my growth, and really, like I have really had to push really hard through that inertia and through that fear to do certain things and to post certain posts, and to build up my confidence to make stuff happen, because honestly and truthfully, that confidence wasn't there. You can call it a false sense of confidence a lot of times. Like I guess I can force myself to do certain stuff, but when it came to like my work and stuff, I was a perfectionist because of that criticism and stuff that I got from my dad. Like I felt like I needed to do it right. I needed to do it perfect for people to take me seriously. And I just became a perfectionist. And with me becoming a perfectionist, having ADHD, all of that, and I would get to a point where I would have like ADHD paralysis. Like I couldn't work on the things, and I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. Or if I did, I would have to build up mental things to help me work through it. And it would be very slow, very choppy. But just to fast forward, just imagine me going through arguments with my parents, like sometimes on a daily basis, and that breaking down my self-esteem and my confidence in myself. Just, it would be a whole thing. My dad, anytime we got in an argument or anything, and that kind of started in high school, but it especially started in college. He would bring up all my mistakes, anything I've ever done. He's throwing it at me in an argument, and these arguments would ensue from the littlest shit. And they would trap me, because it would be a conversation. We could start a conversation about some literal fucking Eggo waffles, and it ends in how I'm not doing shit, and that I'm not like I did this thing in the past and I'm not smart enough to realize this or that. And being criticized in those ways and stuff makes you feel like you have to prove yourself to people, and makes you feel like whenever anybody ever says anything about you or your skills, you have to come back like, no, I can do this, no, I am this, I am that, and you get defensive. And that's where I've been, and it's not a fun space, mental space. But yeah, so just fast forward, just all of that arguments, trying to work on my stuff. And at this point I wasn't working on stuff for clients or working on clothes for other people and stuff, but I was trying to work up my confidence to be able to go outside in my craft, because I was having to hide myself. Like I was having to hide the stuff that I like to wear and all this and that because of the household that I lived in, because that just simply was not allowed. And there was that fear about that, and then trauma responses I would have, and just, it was a whole thing. And like, some of y'all, it seemed dumb, and y'all like I would never do that, but my ass was doing that shit. I was putting on these clothes to go do this shoot, and then changing to come home and shit. Like, it was a whole thing. Like, to express myself and get to these peaks that I've reached, it has been in a very toxic household and a very toxic environment. Scissor X it, very toxic environment. I was doing the shit in secret. Imagine not being able to tell nobody about the things that you're doing and stuff, because it's going to turn into how you're not doing this, or you're not doing that, or this is not going to go anywhere, that's not doing it. That's where support comes in. And my eldest brother, he's one to love to talk about something. I never act like people don't support me or this, that, the other. But that's where support comes in, where it's just like breathing life into me, telling me I can do these things instead of telling me what I can't do or this, that, the other. That's something my dad did a lot, and that's something my mom did a lot. And they grew a lot of resentment towards me, and I grew resentment towards them, but they grew a lot of resentment towards me because I didn't want to do things their way. I didn't want to work in no dead-end fucking job that I hated just to support myself, and being tired when I come home, being irritable when I come home, and not enjoying my life. I see past y'all. I see y'all. I see how y'all are at the emotional intelligence of literal 10-year-olds. I see that come out. I see that inner child come out. And I'm your child, and I'm having to be hyper aware of your emotions, hyper vigilant with all of this stuff to be able to survive and to be able to keep myself sane and to shift amongst. And just, I got to a point where I tried to stop talking to them while living in the house with them. Like, I tried to go no contact while living in the house with them. That's how bad the arguments and all the shit would get. Like, I don't know if people understand the weight of that, but imagine being in a household with somebody that is like basically putting the food on the table and doing all this, and you are taking on a vow of silence, because anything you say is going to be used against you. Oh, child, it's been a lot. But yeah, so that has been continuing, just the arguments and all this and that. But once they started to realize I was catching on to their game, they've kind of changed up their personalities. So now, but up to now, it's been acting really nice towards me some days, and trying to talk to me, like asking me about myself and shit. And that shit was a trap, because they would only do that for me to let my guard down again, and then they pounce and attack me. And a lot of times they would do it together. They couldn't talk to me one at a time. It would be together. I'm having to defend myself. It's a really crazy way to live, to have somebody act so nice towards you, and you're thinking everything's cool. Maybe they're not narcissists. Maybe they're not as bad as I thought. Maybe it's me. And then they switch up, and then you're like, oh shit, I gotta leave. But I don't have shit. I don't have shit. All I have is talent and will, and barely that at this point. But yeah, that's kind of how that has been, and that can drive a motherfucker insane. That has literally caused mental health illnesses in people, that kind of abuse, because it is abuse. My mom, she's always poking, like, I'll give you the most recent example. Some examples. We'll be walking in the mall or something. I say, hey, how you doing to somebody, and it's just so happens to be a girl. And my mom was like, oh, she was checking you out. She thought you was cute. Like, the denial about my queerness, berating, reprimanding. Recently, we watched All the Queen's Men, and we were watching it together. And she was like, would you ever, like, asking stupid ass questions because they want to get reactions out of me? Would you ever would you ever dance like them? Would you ever do that? Like, this is pure desperation at this point. You're asking me if I would basically be a stripper for women to be straight, in a sense. And I said, no, not for them. But I would though, but like not like that. And just like the whole little poking and questions and stuff, because they want to get reactions out of me. And ask them, it's me always coming at them, when actually I'm asking them to take accountability for their actions, and they're not wanting to. And I'm the one always starting arguments. Even when I came out with my HIV status, my dad, their education on HIV and AIDS and stuff is like Stone Age. So when I came out with that and told them, it was instantly like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this, and you felt like you have to deal with this alone. It instantly was, you put everybody's health in the house at risk. Mind you, I'm undetectable. I know how these things spread. You uneducated bitches on HIV, don't come in my comments, because you don't know. You don't know. There was no way anybody in that household was going to catch anything, contract anything from me. But it instantly became the narrative of, you put everybody in the house in danger. They became the victims yet again. Yet again. I got to a point, before I moved forward to now, I got to a point back in like from 2022 to now, maybe late 2022, early 2023, somewhere around there, where I got to a point where I had came out with everything, and I was just like, I'm tired of trying to hide myself from them anymore. This is before I knew they were narcissists and stuff. And like, I became completely open and vulnerable and trying to express myself to them. They rejected it. They rejected all of that shit. And so that was one thing I had to deal with. But now I'm dealing with this like narcissism of it all, and realizing that, and realizing the abuse that I've been through with that. Because not all abuse is physical. And people don't realize that. And I didn't realize that. And I've been gaslighting myself out of that. But at first it was, the whole plight was, my parents, my family rejects me for my queerness. But that wasn't all of it. It was more than that. You know, I hope this video not all over the place. And now it's to a point where, when I had my stroke back in November of 2023, my mini stroke, I was in the hospital. This is just a quick story. And we had a family member, close relative that also had a family member that was in the hospital for something. And I guess my mom and her had saw each other, and they started talking and stuff. She ended up telling her about why I was in the hospital, which she had to apologize for, because why are you telling my medical business to people? Irregardless, so that family member ended up coming to my room to check on me and see how I was doing. And she knew I had a TIA, or whatever they call it, like a mini stroke. And she was just like, you know, it may be cerebral palsy, or this. It was cerebral palsy. She's not a doctor. She didn't know what she was talking about. Irregardless, she was like, yeah, maybe cerebral palsy, or this, that, the other, or could be a stroke, this, that, the other. But you know, with cerebral palsy, like, that can come from like emotional distress and all this and that. And she was like, what's got you stressed out? I was just like, I lied. She was like, you shouldn't be stressed out at this age, this, that, the other. And in my head, I'm just like, if only you knew. If only you knew my story and the shit I go through. And she was like, yeah, you should start talking to somebody. Mind you, I've been in therapy, and I've been going to therapy and shit, because I can't talk to nobody. And my mom, she took it upon herself to be like, to start saying, yeah, he don't like talking to me. Yeah, he don't like bitch, what? In that moment, I wanted so desperately to like shut all that shit down. Like, bitch, the fuck? I don't like talking to you, and I don't like you. There's a reason for that. One, and two, you don't want to hear the shit. You don't want to hear about my queer problems. You don't want to see the gay. You don't want to see nothing. You sitting here putting on this show for this, huh? And I didn't say shit. I let it go. And then not too long after that, my dad, there was a situation. My uncle, my mom's brother, was over, and him and my dad were talking. And I was in the house. He was like, "Yeah, they don't appreciate." He was talking about me and my sister. These kids don't appreciate nothing. And when I was growing up, and that's his whole plight, is just like I feel like he wants us to suffer in ways that he had to as a child, and because we didn't suffer those ways, we don't understand certain things and can't possibly whatever. And I think he feels like we would take heed to the abuse more if we had an upbringing like him, and we would just appreciate being treated wrongly and would never speak up for ourselves. And he was doing all that, and he was like, yeah, he act like he don't even want to be like me, or he's trying, everything I do, he try to be opposite than, and this, that, the other. And that really fucks with me, because I am gay, and I feel like he took that, he takes that so personal, to the point where he feels like everything I do is to be obtuse to him, even to the point of my queerness, that I'm trying so desperately to be obtuse to him. Like, it doesn't get more narcissistic than that, honestly. And that was another moment. Our family was there, and because of my trauma and because of whatever, I didn't come up with the words, but I ended up telling them about themselves. And of course, they took heed. They didn't take, well, they're at a point now where, like, y'all, the emotional abuse and just like the tricks and trips of it all, like, it's so hard to explain, because it just, on the surface, it don't look like shit, but it's so much shit going on. They'll just like deny, and like try to move on from it, and try to gaslight me like my experience isn't my experience. But sometimes now it's just like I catch them so red-handed they can't even say, they have nothing else to say, and they will literally, in the midst of me talking, start talking about something else. That's another thing they do. Like, I will be talking to them or explaining something to them, and just the utter disrespect to just literally start talking to each other, or to ask the other something in the midst of me talking. Just all that kind of shit has been happening, and I'm just in my breaking point. I'm finna get the fuck up out that house. I don't know how I'm finna do it. I don't want to hustle for it. I don't want to work myself to the bone for it. I want to work smart, not hard. I'm at the point I don't have the motivation to work on clothes and fashion and stuff, something that I love to do. And that's one of the goals that they probably wanted me to be at. They want me to get to this point. They want me to break down. That's what they want to happen. They want my life to be miserable in order for me to act how they want me to act, and to be subservient to them. And yeah, they treat me like a maid sometimes. It's a whole thing. But I'm not doing well, and I wanted to just make this video to say so. Even with my brother, we just fell out because I realized he was a narcissist too. And I know some people be like, well, everybody in your life can be a narcissist. Well, when you're in a narcissistic family, yeah, it can be. He recently came back down here, and I was thinking everything was going to be peaches and cream. Mind you, we talk on the phone. He has berated me a few times where he's just like, his own fears get the best of him, and he would talk to me like, well, what are you doing? How you gonna do this? I don't think you know, how this and that, because his whole play, when he came out, my parents rejected him as well. And this is back before I knew what gay was, any of that. Me and my little sister, we didn't know what was going on, but he ended up he stopped coming home as much. Just when he was in college, he stopped coming home as much, but the whole time he was working and doing all this and like trying to sustain himself, and that's his whole plight. And so him looking at me, he is jealous and envious, all these things, but he's gaslighting me, and I'm not realizing what's going on this whole time. But he came down here, mind you, he has told me in the past like how he feels like I'm spoiled, rotten, and I'm so entitled Mind you, I'm so not that. He calls me selfish because I seem to not care about anybody else's emotions when that can be no further from the truth. But me not realizing that this is gaslighting and all of that at the same time, I just couldn't see it. Because it would be the way narcissists act and the way they slither it in there, you wouldn't be able to see it unless you know. But he ended up coming down here, and mind you, I'm thinking everything cool. He like, yeah, I'm coming down there. Recently he's been asking me like, yeah, I want to go see my friend out here in Hawaii, or I want to go do this, I want to do that. Do you want to come with? Like, just acting. But at the same time, I'm being very timid about these things. I'm being very cautious because this shit is, I'm not one to get excited about material things because I've had them snatched away from me on purpose before by my parents and stuff. So I'm not somebody, I don't value those type of things because I'm grateful for what I have, and I know that I have things coming for me, and I don't have to depend on somebody else for that happiness and for those things, because that's basically how I've been trained my whole life. But yeah, so I'm thinking everything cool between us and stuff. And so he comes down here, and mind you, he works from home, and in my area, we don't have good Wi-Fi. Like, it's like very slow Wi-Fi. We don't have the AT&T fiber and all this shit that some of y'all got. It's not available in this area. So the Wi-Fi that we had, which was AT&T in my area, which there isn't even AT&T around here. So it's even weird how they even set that up or whatever. But the shit's slow as fuck. So he can work from home at home. So he'll have to come here at my grandmother's house, my dad's mom's house, which he has his own trauma with that because he is my half brother. And my dad isn't his dad, basically. But my dad raised him as if he was his dad. And that was just how that was. But he had certain traumas and stuff why he didn't like coming over here and like being here by himself to work. Because over here, they ended up putting some new houses and stuff over here. So they basically ended up bringing fiber and stuff over here. So that's how this house has the Wi-Fi connection. But basically, he wanted me to come down here with him basically because he just doesn't like this house or this, that, the other. So I was like, yeah, cool. Like, I'm cool with coming over here. This is like, has been my escape a lot of times from there. Like, because I literally have nowhere else to go. Literally. Like, I used to have to take walks. Like, it was bad. Like, I have nowhere to go. I have no escape from the shit. And it drives me crazy. But yeah, he ended up coming down. He got here. He ended up getting here late because it's his own personal stuff. But he got here, and I was prepared for him, and we came straight over here, and he was working. And mind you, the heater, we didn't know how to cut on the heater. We have gas heaters here and shit. And I was telling him that, like, oh yeah, that's why you had to bring a jacket, because there is no heat here, this, that, the other. And so he's like, no, I'm not dealing with this, da-da-da. So he ended up calling Wi-Fi people to basically get Wi-Fi installed at our house. New Wi-Fi, because my parents, they're just very not savvy with some stuff, and they're incompetent when it comes to certain stuff. So he basically ended up setting up another Wi-Fi thing, and he asked my dad, of course, and then my dad was like, yeah, do what you want to do, whatever. So basically he was like, we're not going to have to deal with this tomorrow or whatever. So we were going to move. So he finished his work day out. Mind you, it was only like a few hours, because by the time he got here and stuff and finally got to work, his work day was basically over. So it wasn't that many hours. I was just here sewing up some stuff, working for my client that I'm working for right now, and just doing that while he was doing that. Still being productive. Mind you, I had been kind of putting it off because I didn't want to get too invested in my work and stuff before he came. So I was prepared all day for him. So then we ended up leaving. We got something to eat. He paid for something to eat. We got something to eat. We went home. And so he was like, oh, we can come back for our things tomorrow, or come back for our things after we eat or whatever. Mind you, I had my phone charger here and my laptop, like all kinds of stuff that I basically would need. And so he was like, we'll come back after we eat. Because mind you, my grandmother's house is like maybe 10 minutes away, or less than like 5 minutes away from our house. It's a straight shot. So I was like, okay. So after he ate, he ended up falling asleep on the couch. And so mind you, with his setup for work, he has like a double monitor, all these cords and shit. And he had a suitcase that he put some of that stuff in. He had like this little, like, it looked like one of the machines where you put your card in. Like, he had a bunch of different little shit, keyboard, all kinds of shit. And I didn't understand the setup, but that was his setup. And mind you, he had promised that we was gonna come back to get our things, but that couldn't happen because he was asleep. And so I was like, I'm gonna just come back and get my things. And then, mind you, the Wi-Fi guy is supposed to come that next morning at 8 in the morning. And I was thinking, and mind you, he had to clock in at 10. So I was like, he has time for the Wi-Fi guy to come. He can come get his thing. Like, it wasn't gonna be a problem in my head. And so I ended up coming back over here to get my things because I do need my phone charger. I do need my things and stuff. And I just didn't want to leave my stuff over here. So I got my things, and something told me, I was just like, let me look at his stuff, see if I can maybe grab his things as well, because I was trying to be courteous and trying to be nice and trying to not be selfish, if you will. And I was just like, I don't want to fuck with this. I don't want to fuck nothing up, because of my whole life I have been made to feel like a fuck up and that I fuck shit up. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to mess with this. I'm just leaving here for him to get tomorrow. And I thought that was no big deal. There was no malicious intent behind that or anything. I got my stuff. I went home. So then the next morning, the Wi-Fi guy ended up leaving. But by the time the Wi-Fi guy was leaving, it was around 10. So my brother, it was time for him basically to clock in. And so he's I could tell he's already a little bit grumpy-ish. And I told him that I had got my stuff the day before. And he didn't pay no mind at first. He just was like, whatever. And so he was like, well, can you come back with me? Because he didn't know the keys for the locks and stuff. And I did. So I didn't mind coming with him and everything. And I'm up. I'm trying to put on my jacket because I'm trying to wonder if it's cold outside, whatever. Mind you, I have ADHD, y'all. And I had not taken my medicine, or I had just taken my medicine. It had not kicked in yet. So I can get flustered easily, especially in the morning. So I'm more worried about my jacket and stuff. So then we get out the house. I'm locking the door. Mind you, the Wi-Fi guy leaving. Like, my mind is like so many other places. I ended up leaving my house key in the house and my grandmother's key, the house key in the house. And mind you, he left his house key in Dallas on accident. So then I was like, oh shit, let me try to... And then I looked back at him just to remember he didn't have his house key either. So we were basically locked out and we didn't have a means to get into this house to get his things. And that's when the rageful fit happened. That's when he started being like, why the fuck would you do this? Like, that's like selfish. Like, you don't think about nobody else but yourself. Da 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 da. Why would you do that? Da 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 da. I'm like, hold on. It's a mistake. This is easily fixable. My mom's job isn't that far away. We can get her house key, get in the house where my sister can get up. But we tried to call her. She didn't get up. So then it was a whole thing like, you selfish. You don't care about nobody but yourself. Da da da. And mind you, the way he was talking to me was really off the wall, and I didn't appreciate it. He's cussing at me, all this other shit. But I'm like, I made the mistake. I'm trying to mediate it. I'm trying to keep the situation calm because I know how pressing he can be and provoking he can be. So I just was like, you know what? I'm going to keep calm. I don't appreciate him talking to me like this. I'm going to talk to him about that later. But let's try to get him his stuff so he can clock in and we can keep it pushing. So then he's telling me like, you know, this kind of fucked up that you didn't get my stuff. And I'm trying to explain to him that like, I don't know how to deconstruct all your shit and bring you with me. I didn't know how to do nothing and I'm on the job. I'm trying to explain that to him, but all he's saying is you're selfish and all this and that. So then we get to my mom's job. Mind you, I don't even have on nothing like this. I had on sweats. I looked a mess. I had not washed my face, nothing. I looked a mess. And he wanted me going to her job like that. Mind you, she works in like, she's an accountant. She works in like that kind of sphere. And he wanted me to go through the front door looking a mess. Mind you, that's something I don't do. If I ever need to get something from her, if I need to go run an errand for her or something, I call her, she comes out, she brings me whatever, and then I do that. I don't go in her job. So I was telling him like, no, I'm not going in there. I don't never go in her job like that, this, that, the other. So then he gets even more upset. He's like, oh my God, da da da, what the fuck, da da da. You could have did this, that's the least you could do, da da da. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. Like, I was not finna cross my boundary for that reason, because I messed up. All we had to do was call her and she was gonna come outside. So, he keeps berating me and coming at me and just talking to me like I'm somebody on the fucking street. Mind you, we was just good yesterday. He's talking to me like I'm somebody on the fucking street. I said, in my head, I've gotten to a point now where I'm like, been healing and stuff. I was like, I don't have to deal with this. And I said, no, I don't appreciate you talking to me like that, this, that, the other. Well, you da-da-da, you da-da-da. I said, I got out the car. Mind you, it wasn't that much of a walk, and I walked home. I said, I don't have to deal with this. So he ended up getting her key, ended up getting in the house, getting my grandmother's key, and leaving. He watched me while he could see me while he was leaving, and he went on. And something told me, I said, he didn't lock that door. He didn't lock the front door. He didn't lock me out the house. Just for me to get to the house, let up the garage door to go in, he locked me out the house. And it was like he was trying to teach me a lesson or this, that, the other. But he sat there and locked me out the house. Mind you, I had not did nothing to him, and I had not did nothing to him purposely, and I was very apologetic and everything. Like, I didn't. Basically what I'm trying to say, his reaction wasn't it wasn't adding up for what actually happened and the intention and all that. I made a simple mistake. He's like, you don't pay attention to shit, da da da. Like, and for him to always telling me about how ADHD and stuff, how he got ADHD, and trying to tell me how my ADHD don't affect certain shit and trying to invalidate me and stuff. Like, that was very hurtful for him to even do that like that. Like, I'm forgetful, and like, this was a mistake, but you really sitting here coming at me like this. But he locked me out of the house. My sister, I ended up knocking on her window. She let me in. I told her about the situation. And so then, usually at this time when they give me these rageful fits from like my dad, my mom, like my whole life, like it puts me in a state of fear, in a state of fight or flight, and I just don't want to make it worse. And so usually what I would have done, I would have just stayed in my room the whole day and let him work in the living room and do his shit, whatever, and make myself suffer because they're at this acting out like this. But I said, no, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm finna fix me breakfast and I'm finna start back working on my stuff for my client, and I'm about to keep it pushing. I'm not finna bother him. He's already talked to me crazily and he's locked me out the house, but I'm not finna bring up none of that shit, because I'm a very non-confrontational person. And I basically fixed me some oatmeal, drink me some water, trying to get my morning together and not trying to let this situation fuck me up for the whole day, because that's what will happen. They shit will fuck me up all day, and then they be okay. They be emotionally alright, or acting like they are at least. And I'm the one that have to take on all this damage and stuff after they had their little rageful fit. And so I get home. I have my earphones in because I already know he possibly gonna be talking shit and stuff. I just don't want to. I don't want to confront. I don't want none of this to happen. He's coming at me still. Da 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 da. Because I was starting to tell him about how I think my parents are narcissists and stuff, and of course he was trying to gaslight me out of like they couldn't possibly be like that, or just trying to whatever. And he had just gotten to the point where it was like, well, yeah, maybe our dad is like that, but not our mom, because he had the closer relationship with our mom and stuff. Irregardless, he started to tell me, I think you're the narcissist. Da da da. I think you're the selfish one. Da 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 da. And then he said something about a bitch, this, that, the other. I said, well, that's kind of what you acted like, because I haven't done nothing. And then he was like, no, you the bitch, da da da, bitch, da da da. Mind you, I'm hearing every other word he's saying because of my earphones. I'm like, I can't hear you because whatever. And he's calling me all kinds of bitches and shit, calling me all this shit. In the house I live, you don't even live here. You doing this, I don't own this house, but what? Just calling me all out my name. And I just kept it, I paid it. I said, ain't nobody checking for you. And I finished eating my oatmeal and I drank my water. He's constantly complaining about shit, going off trying to provoke me and trying to poke at me, telling me how I'm not gonna do shit and how I'm not doing shit, da da da. Because he has all his value and his possessions and stuff. And so because I don't value those things, because I'm not doing things a certain way, he's trying to throw all this shit in my face thinking it's gonna upset me. But he doesn't realize I've been getting this shit thrown in my face for 2 years now from my parents and from everybody else whenever they get a chance. This shit don't faze me no more. Y'all not finna stop me from doing what God has made me out to do. Y'all not finna break my faith. Y'all not finna break my soul. So he just saying whatever. I'm paying the dust. He thinking whatever. Just calling me selfish because I didn't get his stuff. But if I had fucked up his shit, it would have been a whole nother argument. But I got in my room. I just working for my client, and I'm not having the best day because I don't want to come out of my room. I hear him complain on the phone to people doing his whole little smear campaign, something I'm used to as well from my mom and stuff, just talking about me to other people, and I never had no say. Paid the dust, but it was just really festering inside of me and making me angry because I knew I had not done anything to him to deserve how he was treating me. It had been festering all day, and I'm trying to work on stuff, but I couldn't even. Then he ended up taking my sister to some Mexican restaurant. He asked me if I wanted to go. He was trying to act like he wasn't pressed, but he was pressed. It was just the whole thing. But I knew he was pressed, and I was just like, at that point, after he treated me the way and said the shit he said to me, I didn't want nothing else from him. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to be around him. So I was like, y'all go ahead, y'all have fun. They went, they did whatever. Mind you, I hadn't ate nothing all day. I'm just pushing through. But eventually, I got to a point, I was like, let me go to the gym. I ended up getting up, go to the gym. It's the evening time now, around close to the time that he got to clock out, but he had not clocked out yet. But I think he ended up clocking out early and just was asleep on the couch. My dad was home by this point, all that. And he was asleep, so I didn't have to deal with none of that when I went to the gym. I ended up getting to the gym. My sister and him went somewhere. And so, by the time I got back from the gym, basically everybody was home. And I was counting on it becoming an argument. I talked about this on my Instagram story, like, yeah, this is about to be a brawl because he has went to them and told them his side of the story, and it's about to be Chris did this, Chris did that, and now it's about to be 3-on-1, and that's what I was expecting. But I went to the gym. I got a headache by this point. Like, this shit has really fucked with me this day. I get home, my dad and him, my brother, are under the carport looking at something under his car, something about his battery or something. And I'm coming under the garage, trying to go into the house from the gym. And he's sitting in his car trying to crank up whatever they're doing. And he gets up out of the car, and I'm like, can I get by? I'm trying to be very nice and polite because I'm already not fucking with you, and I'm not trying to provoke the situation any further. And he said, you can wait. You always seem like you entitled to everything, da-da-da. You can fucking wait, da-da-da. And he's doing this in front of my dad. Mind you, we don't cuss and do all this shit in front of people like that. And he doing all this shit. Talk about something, you just think you just whatever. You just so entitled, da-da-da. No, you gonna wait till we done. Nigga, I'm just trying to get in the house. And mind you, it was space for me to walk by, but he wouldn't let me by. So then my dad was like, you see this, right? And they're like, no, just come on. And he just was trying to diminish the situation and trying to be like, just come on. And I'm trying to go. I had to go all the way around and go squeeze through to get to the house when he could have easily let me by. Then he started talking about shit. And I said, you know what? I said, leave me the fuck alone. Or I said some shit like that. Mind you, I don't cuss for my people. Mind you, my mom's sitting right here on the couch as I'm coming in the house. My dad is right here, out here with him. And I'm coming, leave me the fuck alone, whatever I said. And he coming at me. And I said, leave me the fuck alone. I ain't did shit to you. That's what I said. That was my words. And so I'm upset. And I just started telling him, I was like, I'm tired of him. Mind you, like, y'all, I can kind of explain our relationship with my mom and stuff. Like, this is some of the better times, per se. Where it's not a thing. So I'm just like, I'm tired of him. And mind you, I don't like opening up to them. Don't like telling them shit because they use it against me. But like at this point, like I have nobody else to talk to this situation about. And I feel like everybody's against me. And that's part of that's my own trauma too. But that was part of his thing. Like he was like, we've all been talking and we all feel like you're selfish, Chris. And I would take in those things and be like, okay, maybe. But I'll see. But he would just constantly be trying to make me take on these titles and make me take on these things about myself that weren't true. But Yeah, so then I ended up telling her about the whole situation that I basically just told y'all. And then he ended up coming in the house. And he ended up coming to me. You ain't shit. You ain't gonna do shit. You ain't da-da-da. You ain't doing nothing. You da-da-da. You da-da-da. Mind you, I have been telling him this whole time. He's one of the people I confided in. Telling him what I'm doing. What I'm trying to work on. The day before, he was telling me he thought all I did was patchwork. Like sewing patches on the stuff. I showed him that night before, like, I be making shit from scratch. Like, I'm actually learning, trying to teach myself fashion. Like, I'm putting myself through school. Like, and he didn't even know that. But mind you, he supports me so much, and he likes my, all my posts and shit. He just lying. But he didn't realize that about me. And he didn't realize just a lot of little stuff about me that I've been telling him this whole time. He was like, oh yeah, and that just that night before any of this happened, he was like, oh yeah, Chris, you gonna be good. I didn't know you was doing all this. I didn't know you was doing this and this and this. I didn't know you was. And in my head, I was just like, yeah, I've been telling you that. But all of that got thrown back in my face the next day. He was like, you ain't doing shit, da da da. You don't pay attention to that, bitch. You don't pay attention to me. But I got to a point, I was finna try to get up and leave, and he kept coming to me. He started getting in my face, and it's just like the rage, like everything just erupted out of me, and I just started hollering. I have never hollered like this in my life. Like, I was hollering, like, cause he wouldn't leave me alone. I was trying to pay a dust and call it whatever, cause I did not do shit to him. I was telling him I didn't do shit to you. Like, it was a whole thing. I'm sitting there hollering and stuff, and he's still coming at me real heavy. Like, you're coming at me this heavy when, like, think about the situation at hand. Like, y'all, like, the situation wasn't that serious to garner this type of reaction. And I spoke up for myself this at the other night. I ended up just going to my room. My sister ended up checking on me. She was like, I heard the pain. She was like, I heard the pain in your voice. Da, da, da. I never heard you holler like that before. And I just like, yeah. And it was just like a whole thing. But basically, out of that situation, I knew that I had not did nothing to him. And I knew he was going to have to apologize to me. And whoop-de-doo, he ended up, first off, he was supposed to stay that whole week. He ended up leaving that day. That was something, I don't know if he decided, my parents decided, but he ended up leaving that day, which I was glad of. He ended up coming back there to tell me bye to my room, tell me bye, I said bye, and he left. And I was happy. I felt like a weight would lift off my shoulders. I didn't know how I was going to get through that week with him being there. And especially after he treated me like that, talked to me like that. It garnered a very toxic environment. And he came with a lot of negative emotions. And I just realized through that whole situation, he came down here with a chip on his shoulder against me. And I didn't realize it. This is where the whole spiritual warfare, all of that, it just all comes into play. He came down here with those negative intentions and that chip on his shoulder. He just wanted something to try to use to try to put all that against me because of his own thing. But anyway, he ended up apologizing like maybe that next day. Sent this whole long message. I ended up in replying to that because I wasn't going to reply because I was like, I'm done talking to you. Like, this is before I realized he was a narcissist and, like, that whole thing. And I ended up recording an hour-long voice message because he couldn't understand why I didn't like talking to my brother that was under him. He didn't understand why I talked about my parents the way I did. He couldn't understand it. Like, why? Because he just was trying to pay me out like I'm just the villain and I'm just so selfish and stuff. And I don't give a fucking about nobody. When I'm trying to explain to you, like, the literal abuse that I'm going through. But that was all a part of it. He's a narcissist. Like, of course he's going to be on their side. Of course he's going to take up for the narcissistic parent. They made him in his image. I sent him this whole hour-long message just literally explaining everything. I explained the situation that day, how I felt about it, why I felt the way about them, the way I felt about them. Explained to him that, like, because his whole thing is, I always say, nobody ever supported me, and that's his whole thing. He has used that as his own plot now, when that is furthest from the truth. So yeah, I ended up sending it to him. I tried to tell him, like, don't try to listen to this to respond. And that's exactly what he ended up doing. He listened to it to respond. I don't even think he listened to the whole thing. And then he started coming at me, and then he got defensive. Then an emotional part came out. Mind you, he told me in his original message, like, he felt like the 5-year-old part of him came out where nobody listened to him or this, that, the other. And he was taking that out on me. That's not my problem, babes. But it just turned into a whole thing, and he was just like, you just don't appreciate nothing. Mind you, I've always said thank you. I've always been very grateful for anything anybody has ever done to me. And I never asked for too much. And he has even offered to do things for me. Like, he offered just recently, just before that time, before he came home, like, he was like, you know what? The stuff you need for your business and stuff that you're working on, put it in the Amazon cart and I'll buy it for you or whatever. And I did. And we were supposed to order that around that time. But after that situation, I was just like, you ain't got to buy shit for me. Because he started trying to throw that in my face. And then it clicked. All these things he has been doing for me, he did them to have something to be able to put in my face. He was doing the same thing my dad has been doing. He would do those things for the optics of it, to make me love him more. But he didn't understand that, like, that's not how that works for me. So you helping me out with this, that, the other is not going to make me call you more than I already do. It's not going to make me love you anymore. And that's where I can break all of that down. Because with narcissism, it's a bunch of insecurities. It's a bunch of that in an adult body. And I can understand that now. And I can understand, yeah. He was trying to make me take accountability for shit I didn't do. He was trying to shift the blame onto me and trying to make me apologize for something. Just trying to make me apologize for something. Because he just felt so whatever. And that let me know that his apology wasn't genuine. Now, a lot of stuff he did for me wasn't genuine because he did it to throw it in my face. But overall, what I'm just trying to say about this whole situation is just like, I'm not doing well. That situation that I just talked about, that was like last week. Yeah. So that, and he was one of my main people that like supported me in terms of like the day to day. Like, we can talk on the phone about different shit, about gay shit. He would confide me, I'm confiding him and shit. He wouldn't necessarily support the things I was doing per se, like my YouTube and my posts and shit. But he would kind of support me and lend a listening ear when I was talking about my parents and stuff. And he would always try to take up for them and shit, but try to be understanding to my point as well. But I just realized who he really was, and he was trying to make me out to be who he was. He was projecting onto me. And it started to make me feel like I was crazy. And just like that situation, I don't talk to that other brother. My sister is in no position to help take up for me. I'm advocating for myself against all these people. And just all of that, just in combination, is just making me feel like I'm crazy. My parents right now, they're in this phase where they're trying to make me lay my guard down again, where they're acting all nice and shit, and acting like ain't nothing going on, and just playing their little mind tricks, and it's driving me crazy, and I'm at my breaking point. I'm very depressed. This pussy depressed. This pussy is depressed. I'm tired. I'm sick. All of this is taking a toll on my body, my emotional state, and my mental health. And I don't know how much more I can take. I had to get on this camera because I felt like I was having like a breakdown, starting to have a breakdown, because I'm like, what the fuck? Like, for a while in the past, I felt trapped and just like all of that, and not feeling like I could do certain things. And I'm just now starting to break out of that more. But as soon as I'm trying to break out of that, my brother does some shit like that. It's just, and he knows what I'm going through. I ended up telling him about himself. I said, you're a narcissist. Like, I know your games. I told him, I listened to him, the things that, why my reasoning was the way it was and all this and that. And I just went no contact with him, and I told him, like, I'm going to be good. Like, you telling me I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that, same shit my dad telling me, I'm going to be good. God got me. God done showed me what my future is. But all of this, I'm saying all this to sum up, like, with them, that is God showing me that who I can share my abundance with when I get it, who not to share with, who not to be so giving with, because I'm a very giving person and a very unselfish person, apart from what he would say about me or whatever. But he's showing me, God or Spirit is showing me. That's what he's been showing me. And I hate that it has to be like this, but it kind of has to be like this for me to not, because my whole life I've kind of been like a puppy that like somebody would kick and do all this thing, but they would still the puppy would still come up to their owner, wanting love from their owner, still loving their owner after their owner did all this shit to them. That's how I've been made to be my whole life. And I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it. And y'all know I don't like jobs. I don't want no job. But if I have to, I will. And it's looking like I might have to. Unless God makes some shift. I just don't know what to do. It's just, everything is just, all of that combined is just really taking a toll. And I don't have therapy until the end of this month. We've been going like once a month because I was good for a while, but I'm not good no more. I don't even know the point of this video, to be honest. I just wanted to speak out about this and show that like I'm not okay and I haven't been okay. Like even on social media, the stuff I post, like I try to be okay and I'm thinking I'm good, but I'm still having a struggle. There's still always this struggle, whether internally or externally with my family and stuff. These whole past 2 years plus, like I have not been well in terms of my family and all that. And the only way for me to heal, to properly heal and stuff, is to get away from them, which I'm starting to work on. Like I don't even have the motivation. Like I wanted to work on my fashion line and stuff, and like that's what I realized. I tried to make myself focus on work and just trying to get myself out of the situation for so long that I've been neglecting my emotional and neglecting a lot of stuff about myself. And I need to put me first. Gotta put me first for the shits. But yeah, that was this video. Encouraging words would be helpful. Money would be helpful as well. And I don't say that lightly because I'm somebody that doesn't like handouts, and I don't like asking for help because of how I've been made to feel my whole life. I do not like asking for help. But if you do have something to spare or something even if it's just encouraging words, and I don't even like asking people for prayers either, because not everybody have good intentions when it comes to prayers, but like please pray for me, send good intentions my way, send good energy my way. I'm doing this by myself. I'm really trying. I'll drop my Cash App and stuff in the description and here. If you want to help or in that kind of way, you don't have to. I won't hold anything against you for not doing it or whatever. But I need to get out of this situation. Any help would be wonderful. Even like some of that help, like even if it doesn't help me to move out per se, it can give me a means to have more control over myself right now in this moment, and like help me to have more resources and stuff for myself to do what I need to do. And I don't know what that is right now. But yeah, that's all. I don't know what else to say, so yeah. See y'all later. Have a good one. Hopefully this video makes sense. I don't know.